Welcome to Epic Greek Myths, where ancient legends come to life. If you're drawn to stories of gods, hidden meanings, and the deeper truths behind mythology, you're in the right place. Today we're exploring one of the most overlooked yet essential figures on Mount Olympus, Hebe, the goddess of youth, renewal, and quiet power. In the world of Greek mythology, power is often defined by strength, wisdom, or control over nature. Zeus commands the sky. Poseidon rules the seas. Athena embodies wisdom and strategy. But there is another kind of power, quieter, often overlooked, yet just as essential: the power of youth, of renewal, of beginning again. This is the domain of Hebe, the goddess of youth, the cupbearer of the gods, and one of the most forgotten figures on Mount Olympus. And yet her role may be more important than it first appears, because while other gods rule over the world, Hebe sustains it. Hebe is the daughter of Zeus, king of the gods, and Hera, queen of Olympus. This makes her one of the few Olympians born from the union of divine authority and divine order. Unlike many of her siblings, Hebe is not associated with conflict or dramatic power struggles. Instead, she represents something more subtle, something every god depends on, but few acknowledge. She is the embodiment of youth itself, not just physical youth, but vitality, freshness, and the ability to renew. On Mount Olympus, Hebe serves as the cupbearer of the gods. It is her responsibility to pour ambrosia and nectar, the divine substances that grant immortality and sustain the gods' eternal existence. This role is more than ceremonial. Ambrosia is not just food, it is the source of divine life. By serving it, Hebe becomes the quiet force behind the immortality of the Olympians. Without her, even the gods would not remain as they are. Hebe's presence on Olympus is often depicted as graceful, calm, and radiant. She moves effortlessly among the gods, offering nectar, restoring energy, and maintaining harmony within the divine order. In many ways, she represents the ideal of youth in ancient Greek culture. Youth was not simply about age, it symbolized potential, beauty, and the beginning of all things. Hebe embodies that moment before decline, before hardship, before time begins to take its toll. But what makes Hebe particularly interesting is how rarely she appears in dramatic myths. Unlike other gods, she is not known for revenge, jealousy, or chaos. Instead, she exists as a stabilizing force, a reminder that not all power is loud. Some power is quiet, continuous, and essential. However, Hebe's story does contain moments of transition, moments that reveal how even the goddess of youth is not untouched by change. In some myths, Hebe loses her role as cupbearer after an accidental fall, an unexpected moment that introduces imperfection into her otherwise graceful image. After this, the role is taken over by Ganymede, a mortal youth brought to Olympus by Zeus. This shift is symbolic. Even youth itself can be replaced. Even renewal must evolve. And Hebe's story does not end there. Hebe later becomes the wife of Heracles, one of the greatest heroes in Greek mythology. After his death and ascension to Olympus, Heracles is granted immortality. And with that immortality, he is given Hebe as his bride. This union is deeply meaningful. Heracles represents strength, endurance, and the trials of mortal life. Hebe represents youth, renewal, and eternal vitality. Together, they symbolize the completion of a journey, from struggle to restoration, from mortality to divine permanence. Hebe's influence was not limited to myth alone. It extended into real life through ritual and cultural tradition. In ancient Greece, the transition from youth to adulthood was considered one of the most important stages of life. It marked a shift from innocence to responsibility, from potential to purpose. And Hebe stood at the center of this transformation. Young people, especially boys entering adulthood, would participate in ceremonies that symbolized this transition. In some regions, these rites were connected to Hebe or her Roman counterpart, Juventus. Offerings would be made to honor youth, not just as a fleeting phase, but as something sacred. Because youth in the Greek worldview was not meant to be wasted, it was a time of preparation, a time of identity forming, a time when the foundation of a person's life was being built. Hebe represented that exact moment, not childhood and not yet maturity, but the threshold between the two. This makes her one of the most psychologically meaningful figures in mythology. She embodies the space where change happens, the moment before everything becomes defined. And in that way, Hebe is not just a goddess of the past. She represents a stage every human being experiences, the fragile, powerful moment of becoming who you are. Beyond her role as the goddess of youth, Hebe is also quietly connected to one of the most overlooked themes in Greek mythology: reconciliation. Her marriage to Heracles is not just symbolic of renewal, it also represents forgiveness. Heracles, after all, is the son of Zeus and a mortal woman, something that once filled Hera, Hebe's mother, with intense jealousy and rage. Hera spent much of Heracles' life trying to destroy him, and yet in the end, Hebe marries him. This union suggests something deeper, a softening of past conflict, a restoration of balance within the divine family. Through Hebe, we see a rare resolution in Greek mythology, where pain, resentment, and chaos are not just endured, but healed. In this way, Hebe becomes more than a symbol of youth. She becomes a symbol of emotional renewal. The idea that even after conflict, something new and peaceful can emerge. In some lesser-known traditions, Hebe is also associated with the ability to restore youth to mortals. She is said to have helped rejuvenate aged individuals, returning them to a younger state. This idea reinforces her deeper symbolism. Hebe is not just youth as a stage of life. She is renewal as a concept, the possibility of starting again, the restoration of what was once lost. In Roman mythology, Hebe is known as Juventas, a goddess connected to youth and the transition into adulthood. Young men would offer prayers to her as they entered a new phase of life, marking their passage into responsibility and identity. This connection shows how Hebe's influence extends beyond Olympus. She represents not just eternal youth, but transformation, the moment of becoming. Her symbols further reflect her identity. The cup she carries represents nourishment and immortality. The eagle, often associated with Zeus, connects her to divine authority. And her gentle presence reflects harmony, balance, and continuity. Ultimately, Hebe's story is not one of dramatic battles or legendary conflicts. It is quieter, but no less important. She represents the force that keeps things going, the renewal that follows exhaustion, the youth that allows life and even the gods themselves to continue. In a world filled with chaos, ambition, and power struggles, Hebe reminds us that restoration is just as powerful as destruction, and that sometimes the most important forces are the ones we barely notice. If you enjoyed this deeper look into one of Greek mythology's most overlooked goddesses, make sure to subscribe to Epic Greek Myths for more stories that go beyond the surface. Because in mythology, there is always more than what we're first told.